Outside our house, they are replacing the road. And one of the interesting things I've noticed is that there was very little attention to the foundation of it. So I have to say I don't have high hopes that this road is going to last, but metaphorically it occurred to me that this is unfortunately so often what I see in organizations, that new employees and even existing employees don't have the sufficient foundation in which to be successful. And that's where, as you know, I focus on recognition. We have a hard time recognizing the greatness that exists within our workforce, but in actual fact, they don't have the foundation in which to be successful to begin with. So what the problem of this is that we know we have a talent shortage that shows no signs of easing until 2030, and yet still we don't attend to those small little things we can do to make sure that we retain those folks. Not only that, it costs a lot of money to be able to retrain, mentor, grow, or eventually perhaps replace people who leave voluntarily or that you feel are not the right fit. And of course, let's not forget that other people need to pick up the workload if you don't have people who are performing to optimal capacity and ability. So in actual fact, the possibility of giving people the right foundation is that you keep them longer, that the quality of their work is better, and that you feel a greater sense of pride. Both the individual themselves and the organization feels pride about the people there. So let's talk about four things that you can do as an organization to make sure that people have the right foundation. Number one, and I'm serious about this, very, very rarely do I hear the organizations that I work with, thousands of people that I'll speak with in any given year, very rarely do I hear this happening. And so you could be that superstar who makes it happen. Giving people sufficient information in which to do a good job when they are potentially coming to join your organization. In other words, we feel it needs to be this big hunt, that they need to go searching for all of the latest trends and research and what is the company about and what's the history. And sure, you know what, you can have people go on a scavenger hunt. You definitely want to check initiative. However, there are so much detail, things that are going on in your organization that nobody outside is going to be able to find, and yet it is probably going to help them demonstrate to you that they're the right fit. And not only that, that you're going to be able to evaluate if in fact they can be trusted with your information. If you don't have somebody that you can trust at the very beginning, if you have decided you're going to give your precious time to interview them, and yet you're not willing to give them some key information about what is going on that's going to impact their job, particularly if they're going to be responsible for it, I don't know, I think that's a bit of a disconnect, don't you? Number two, when you in fact have those people that you've shortlisted, maybe you've even got one superstar in particular, are you allowing them to have a realistic job preview? So that's just HR talk for you're going to allow them to come in and see the work environment, meet some people, get a chance to know the potential boss that they're going to work for, other teams, and be able to sense as to if there's going to be a good fit. All too often we bring somebody into the organization and we're going to assume that this artificial environment that is a job recruitment process, the interviews, the panel discussions, the pre-screening criteria, the resumes, that is somehow going to ensure that we have great fit. And you may be with a progressive company where you have also tools and assessments and other checks and balances, and hopefully you don't lose a good person along the way because there have been so many checks and balances. Let's hope that your process is clicking along well. That aside though, let's assume that you get the right person at the end of that process. Who's to say though that they're still going to be the right fit from a human standpoint? Because this is about the people foundation we're talking about. Number three, and this is so important, do you have an orientation system? Not just everybody getting into a conference room and hearing a series of slide decks, one after the other, about the values and where you've come from and all that. People should know that already. That's why you want them, hopefully them in the first place. What I'm talking about is people being oriented to what is most important at the beginning of their job. In other words, they're oriented to the concept of a 90-day plan where they get an opportunity to help create, either they lead it or they co-create it, so that they're clear as to what the most important things they need to do in their first 90 days. So much of the stuff, and I've been part of many organizations who have been one of the individuals delivering those slide decks after slide decks. It's almost everything that's on there are things that people should already know. It should be part of their practice, it's part of the professionalism that you've hired, or it is stuff that's available on the website anyway. give people that elevated experience of helping them through their onboarding, that orientation process of knowing exactly what they are to do. And here's the fourth thing. And again, you know, the first thing I told you about is what is really going to set you apart. This last thing is too. Do you recognize people that very first day? One of my clients, they do this really neat thing. I love it. And it's not consistently done throughout the organization, but in the areas where they have the greatest retention, they do this. And that is they celebrate, they recognize the person on their first day. They put a little card on there or a little mini sign on their keyboard if they're at a cubicle or if they're in an office that says, "Welcome to the organization, we're celebrating you." Sometimes people write a handwritten note that says, you know, the things that impressed me most in your job interview are, or they'll have a greeting, a reception, and not one of these awkward, like there's this really cheap cake that nobody really wants to eat and people awkwardly stand around in this like too small room. I mean that they do something that's really fun. They, you know, come to that person's workspace, or they say, hey, you know what? High fives. We're going to do this high fives. Make it really, really fun. Something, of course, that's reflective of your culture that shows that person that they are already known and valued and appreciated. Because you know what the alternative is? You know where there isn't a foundation is when people haven't done their homework and haven't been informed about the greatness of the person who's coming into that organization. That is such a missed opportunity. We need to know those folks before they even hit the ground running with us. And it is so easy to pass on some of their genius to the people who are going to be working with them. And if you're one of those individuals, wouldn't you like to know who's going to be joining your team? Now, side note is you should be in the interview panel too, but we're not even going to get into that. That's another vlog. So really, I hope what you've gotten from this vlog today is that there's so many foundational elements that we're often not practicing, or not to the extent that we could, to be able to bring in and give it an incredible experience to people so they want to join your organization and they are more likely to stay because they're satisfied, they feel valued, and they understand what's most important to get the job done. And not only that, the ripple effect of their comfort, them being able to be part of a solid foundation, means that the individuals they work with are going to be able to rely on them, are going to be able to see their greatness and be supported by them so much faster than if they were spending a whole bunch of time trying to get oriented to that on their own. You know, that giving people a policy manual and sitting and spending their first day locked in a room, if you're still doing that, you got to stop that right away. My name's Sarah McVanel. I'm really committed to helping you and the rest of us across North America, shifting that 30% satisfied and 70% dissatisfied, turning those numbers around. And these sorts of things are what's going to do it. Be well, everyone, and be great.